Hi guys, it's Sarah, and I'm gonna pick up the series that we're doing right now of our 4 pillars for YOCF. So that's word, worship, one another, and others. So this week is one another, and I first want us to look at the passage John 13, verse 34. But to set that passage up, this was during the Last Supper, and earlier in the chapter, Jesus washes the disciples' feet. And then he explains how one of them is going to betray him, and Judas leaves, and then it's just Jesus and the rest of the 11 disciples. And Jesus says to his disciples in verse 34, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You are also to love one another." So he's giving a new commandment to the 11 disciples, and he's telling them to love one another. So when I think of loving one another, I think of kindness and caring and being able to listen to one another. And an example of that would be like Hannah and I. One time I was having like a rough day, so I came into the office and Hannah just sat and listened to what I had to say, and then she bought me coffee. And I felt really loved by those actions because she wasn't necessarily fixing my problems, but she was listening, showing me that she was there for me. And Jesus gives us the example of him washing the disciples' feet, which is a loving thing, but that was more of a cultural thing in that time. So feel free to still wash your friends' feet if you want to, but there are also other ways in which we can love those around us. And then in the verse after that, Jesus says, "By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." So not only is this good for us as believers between each other of showing love and building up relationships, but it also gives people the opportunity to come to Christ because they see that the love we have for one another is different maybe than the love that people who aren't Christian have for one another. It goes a little bit deeper than that. And I think a part in that love looking different is bearing one another's burdens. So I think when friends are going through hard times, there's 2 types of friends, and one can really pour in and dive into that relationship and try and help them with what they're going through, and someone can look at it and say, "That's too much for me, I can't really do that." And Christ is telling us and will tell us that we have to be that friend that dives in and helps our friends with what they're going through. So verse that shows that is in Galatians. It's Galatians 6:1-2. It says, "Brothers, if anyone is caught in transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." So the law of Christ that he's talking about is what we just discussed, the new commandment to love one another. And I want you guys to notice too the spirit of gentleness that is mentioned, because sometimes when we bear one another's burdens, we can get harsh. I know for me, if a friend does something like silly or dumb, in my opinion, then I can be kind of harsh in trying to rebuke them. But Paul's not telling us to rebuke them in a hard or negative way. He's telling us to do it in a spirit of gentleness and also bearing one another's burdens. So my dad, when we were growing up, he explained it to me in the way of like, when we're walking and we have, like, imagine you're carrying a backpack that's 50 pounds on your front, and then a backpack on your back that's also 50 pounds. And when a friend comes up to you and can take a load off that, taking the front backpack, then you both have 50 pounds, and it's a lot easier and you can get a lot further in your walk. And we can view that walk as us walking with Jesus and our friends coming along and bearing each other's burdens and helping each other when we need it. So you guys have some discussion questions that your leaders have, and I hope that you guys have a good time talking about them and discussing them.